The Mercedes GLS, the car formerly known as GL, so since the facelift now GLS. This is the full review today in Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars with Thomas. Detailed look, exterior, interior, 7-seater here from Standard Equipment, very interesting. And of course the driving here with the base model 400 or 450 called in the US. We will assess everything together with you in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! So they did change the name recently to have logic inside the SUV setup, GLA, GLC, GLE, GLS, that you can orient on the classes. And I mean, why not? It's just that they renamed the SLK to SLC. What? But here I think it's really okay to call it GLS then. Since the update, the headlights have been updated, now also available with the top trim as we see it here now in LED, also with the updated form. A huge front bonnet, very powerful, also with the chrome contrast here. But I think there's still, although it's a very strong design, it's not, too much. I think it still has something of the Mercedes elegance. 5 meters 12 or 16 foot 8 is the total length of the GLS, and we can really say this is a full-size SUV even in the US. Sometimes it's a different perspective between Europe and US, which is full-size SUV. This one is surely one. You see the basic layout is square-alike, but I think they have some elegant design lines, dividing in light and shadow. And form follows function, basically, to leave more space on the interior. But I think for a big vehicle, they still have managed to give it a nice shape, I think. 21-inch alloys, AMG style. 18-inch it starts from a Standard Equipment. And here, I mean, 21-inch, it still looks tiny in this vehicle. That is something. Option, you can also have this side step bar. It looks a little bit, in the hood style, I would say. So it looks spectacular, but maybe just leave it out because it reduces the ground clearance here. Not sure if it's too helpful. Well, I mean, if children get in and very small people, then they have a help to get in the car. So you maybe have to think about pro and cons about that. And towards the end here, you see this is where the 7th and 6th passenger will take place. See also dark windows in the back part, also to protect against sunlight and also for more privacy. So overall, I think form follows function shape, but I think they have tried to spice it up a little bit. I think it's well done for this segment. Or what do you think? Same is continued here in the rear. See, also one of the very few cars where I can just stand and really match the car here too. With some chrome contrast here. In the States we'll say 450 and not 400. Not really sure why they have these different names there. 4MATIC stands for the all-wheel drive, and also what is interesting for towing, this car is also suitable for that, 3.5 tons or 7,500 lbs. And the total weight of this vehicle is 2.5 tons. So, what do we have here? We know this one. This is the V6 333 horsepower or 362 in the US. Not sure why they have different horsepower figures. It's about different homologation. 6.6 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. This will be enough from this 3-liter displacement. There's also, this one on the GLS 400 or 450 in the US. Then there's also the 500 or 550. This is a 4.6 liter V8, or there's also the 63 AMG 5.4 liter V8, and there's also a 350D with a 3 liter diesel. But I think this engine we can already recommend. We know the engine, it works very well also in other vehicles, and in our driving experience we will also give you some more details about the driving experience with this one. Acceleration wise, I mean, for such a heavy car, already a very good performance. And what we also do, sometimes we do have the very top sporty vehicles, but we try also to implement more on Autogefühl that when we have the choice, when we have the choice, also go for the little lower spec vehicles that we have closer to the customer, not the highest price car. There's sometimes also a Porsche Panamera Turbo, yes, but we try to increase the more affordable cars, even if it's an expensive car, from the expensive car, the more affordable versions, as usually also the lower petrol engine specs, for example, are usually enough. Standard Mercedes key, as we know from the current models. Only the E-Class has a new one at the moment. And we can open the big door. But it's a very easy entry, and we have a lot of shiny dark elements here. They look good as long as they're clean and without scratches. Then inside of the doors you can control the seats, as we used for many Mercedes models. It's a nice visualization always. Good build quality everywhere. Hard plastic is just used here at the inside of the doors, where at the other hand you have a lot of room also for bigger bottles, for example. Here you can open the trunk too. Then this is a special Designo animal skin line. Sadly, I mean, the color is quite nice for sure, but you don't need the animal skin. The interesting thing, in the 400, the GLS, or 450, you get from the standard the Artico. This is Artico, or MB-Tex it's called in the US. This is the leather red line. And this one then you can get in black, brown or beige. And that's great. Mercedes is offering it in 3 different leather red colors. Really well done. And if you go for the 500, the GLS or the AMG, then you automatically get animal skin seats. And so there's another reason to stay with the GLS 400. And let's get inside. And what's also good, that you have a lot of standard equipment. Starting price 75,000 euros in Germany, for example. 2-zone AC air conditioning, Bluetooth, panoramic roof, autonomous emergency brake. Those are all from the standard equipment. Quite well done. 300 euros heated steering wheel, and standard also you get this high seating position, and you have this command view. You really have to step in like in a truck, but this is such a great upright, great seating position, and I really love it for tall people. You have a good comfortable ride, still good overview. It's a huge car, but as the windows are all steep, you can very well see where the car is ending. And of course you can control all the seats where it's going from. We also have a seat massage function optionally. That's also very interesting. Just one thing about, again, the seating surface. We've seen it from the handcraft wise. You've seen this quilted structure on the seat. And I mean, it looks really nice, but it gets uncomfortable, not in the upper, but in the lower part on long-term runs, because the stitch and how the surface is pulled tight gets a little bit uncomfortable. I've experienced that with those special animal skin seats in Audis too. So there, the Artico seats, they have this kind of structure here. You can see that, that goes in lines like this. And they are way more comfortable. I've tested them already in another vehicle I had once. Now the cockpit overview, and wow, it is so extremely silent in here. So silent, and well, maybe just in the Mercedes E-Class. Then let's start this up. Since the facelift, there's also this new screen available. That's the maximum size you can get. This is still a little old school style. We've already seen that in the Mercedes SL still. I'm not sure how many people will dial numbers still when being in the car. This one will be removed in new Mercedes generation models. However, that this one here for seat heating and stuff is still done with manual buttons. I think I like that. You use that quite often, and it's easy just to press it while driving. You have the air vents in a vertical form here, everything with a great processing, and glove box is right there with remote control inside, and we will use that later, so I'll come back to you with that remote control very soon. In the lower part we got some covered with shiny structure again, the temperature unit right there, it's not too far placed below. And the steering wheel, a standard Mercedes steering wheel, does a good job with also metal covers for the shifting levers, and the gear shifter is right here at the steering wheel. Also very handy, you can very fastly move from D to reverse mode and back again. And instruments, more details to that soon. Driver focused with 2 aluminum rings, that gives a little sporty look. Overall I think a very elegant style. If you leave this part apart, maybe that's not the most beautiful anymore, but everything else still does a good job. Small glass roof gives us a little bit more light. We can also open it like this. This gives us even more light. It's not a huge panoramic roof, but at least, you know, this comes from standard equipment. And let's see. So here we go again, and of course you can also have this half opening, and if it's really getting too hot in the States, for example, then you shut it off and have a great microfiber cover here on the whole ceiling. This is high class, we love that. Instruments, you see, beautifully done with a sporty style. Speedometer on the left, RPM on the right. And then you have a small digital screen in the middle part, but I think that's all I really need to check consumption and stuff. And 13 liters is our average consumption, I can already tell you so far. Infotainment system, you control it with a central turning and pressing knob, and for example, optional, you can also have a seat massage. Let's go there, massage, and then you can also have it for the driver and the co-driver, and this will really appear in the seat as it is right here. It's a very nice function, especially to impress your co-driver, and really interesting to see the reactions then. You can also have the engine data mounted in here when I start the engine right there from this dynamic select view here when I turn the throttle. Rum, rum, rum. Let's play some car racing. So see here, the ignition has to be turned on for that. Everything else, you can connect your phone via Bluetooth here in the tail menu, and then there's also the GPS with a good visualization, good reaction times, everything you need basically. The controlling of the system, with this pressing low and then having those options there on the top, on the bottom. It's standard Mercedes style. At a lot of current models, I don't think it's the best solution. Also no touchscreen or something like that, but this will be updated as we've seen, for example, in the new E-Class. And the rear view camera, 360 camera, is really crisp, great resolution. See here the lines, they show you where you're actually going, and that's a huge vehicle you can then also very well control. If you go to the front, the normal D driving mode, you can see the camera to the front, and then you can also switch to another view if you're looking to the front or to the rear. So really helpful, this whole system, like it. AC unit here, one closer look, you can very well see it and control it. Then we have some storage space in the front there, and we can slide open the beverage holders. They are a little bit adaptive in 2 sizes. And my favorite feature is you can cool or heat your drinks, and you also have then the color support by that you can really see what you are doing at the moment, and a 12-volt power supply in the front. And if we move on further, this one here is the turning and pressing control button for the whole infotainment system. I just used this one. You can also use this pad here to scroll around, but usually you just use this one. I think this is not really necessary, the top one. Then we have driving modes from comfortable to sport, or also for reducing the throttle input the other direction than for snow, or also for for off-road terrain. Then the suspension changes, steering, and also engine input. And you can also lift the car if you're going in off-road situations or basement garage ramps when they are really high. So when I start the engine, then I can also press this button here. You see that gets activated, and then the car is lifting up the air suspension. And the split armrest, I always like that. And inside we have 2 USB plugs. What about the rear? Now it gets really interesting because this vehicle is about having a lot of different passengers in here. So yeah, head restraint. And well, the only thing you cannot do, you cannot slide the bench. And this is one reason why you don't have too much knee room here in the rear. So, I mean, this is a really long vehicle, and you have those spares here that you have more knee room basically there. So that's, you know, clever solution for the rear of the seat. Headroom, plenty. 186 or 6'1", there's no problem. Then you do have also optional infotainment system. For example, you have here a nice Mercedes logo, and you can put in a DVD there. I can soon show you why, where. And then you also have those small headphones you can fold out, and so it's very good if you have, you know, oh, Mercedes headphones here. If you have some kids, and then, you know, what's up, girl, in the house, yo, you know, and then get some DVD entertainment here. And with that here, you can go for rear R, and then you have control over the right screen. Go back to the left screen again. So we have this remote for both screens. This could maybe lead to some discussions among brothers and sisters. So you can have seat heating in the rear too when the ignition is turned on. Temperature control, also 12-volt power supplies here, but I think USB supplies would have been better than meanwhile. Maybe they could have done with a facelift, and this is the place where you can put in the DVD for using it in the infotainment system. Now it gets really interesting because, well, we had downside that we couldn't slide the rear bench, but there's a reason why, and we have other flexible solutions. For example, I can put up the seating surface, by the way, Isofix covers here on the outside seats. Then I can flip down the seat manually here. And then we will also have an even loading surface to the very rear when all of the seats are put down. And already here, for example, I can lower the last seating row electronically, so a very handy solution, and also put them up again. This is very easy. And you can see either have a very flat, even loading space up to the front seats, or have more passengers on board here. With a single seat here, that's everything fairly easily done. With the bench, you have to have more power. In the same accounts here, this is already, look at that, haven't seen that so far. If you press a button here at the top, next to the head restraint, what's then happening? The front passenger seat goes forward, because here this one goes very fast, and flips then up. And then you have an easy access to the 6th and 7th seats. We have right there. You can also see they really thought about Isofix cover. That's good, that you can also mount child seats in the very rear. That's also the most clever solution, because you see there's not too much room here left. And I can also, climb in there from rear. This is also good about this very vehicle. You can climb inside the vehicle, especially fun for kids. And you can see when I, have my knees here, well, I can actually fit here, but not knee-wise. Headroom-wise, that's still okay, still for adults, no problem. But we would have had the possibility to move the bench a little forward. Then I can also sit here knee room-wise. That's, for example, possible in the Volkswagen Atlas. This is, would be the, I cost half the price competitor of this one. You could call it that way. Beverage holder here in the rear. But I mean, for children with child seat also, I think that's the best solution here. And then you have the very easy entry. You can do the same thing also here with this bench, basically. Oh, the ignition turned off, therefore we cannot do it at the moment. But then I can show you also how to turn this seat here back again. By the way, this release here is connect it with that one. Then you can also do it manually, basically. So let me climb out. And then you have to just pull the seat back. And there we go. And then put it up again. And doing that same thing with the bench, that takes a little bit more effort. And I can show you, I have to turn on the ignition first again, that we have some power for the seats. So here we go, and then I press the button here. Also the driver's seat moves forward. Even more spectacular effect. There even better access here to the rear seats. But then to put this one back in, you really have to have power to be able to pull this one and then the other one. You can also use this handle here to pull them up, for example, but if you pull them, for example, they go here. So this one, and then at the side, right, you see sometimes you have some problems here. So this one first and then. So here we go. I think overall very flexible on the coasts of not being able to slide the second bench. So the huge hatch here, and what do we have in the trunk? When the third row is being flipped up, you still have some room left. Below that, even more space, and also an interesting solution. You can put that right here, then it's getting held up, and you can move some things in there. Why not? Interesting solution. And you can hide it below that, of course. Again, doing it all with one hand at the moment, because I want to show you, you can also put in this cover here for the rear. Well, better move it in soon, but I mean, just to cover this one, I'm not really sure what's that made for. I would just leave it out, put it somewhere. And then 12-volt power supply, and on the other side, here's some example for a hanger or bag or something. Then you can also here again put the seats down electrically. Interesting solution. Here we go. And then you have, of course, not too much space in height, but in length. And if we then combine it with the non-electric setup, you remember when I put up the seat area myself and then flip the seat here manually, then you see you have the full length of this, not only of this review, but also of this very vehicle. So very flexible with that one, luggage space and still luxury seating positions also in the rear seats. That's what this vehicle is about. And last but not least, let's close the hatch for safety function. We know from a lot of Mercedes vehicles that they have figured it out pretty well. Will this prove again here? Yes. Clap, clap, clap. Very well done. A lot of different manufacturers do not manage it, that they always close properly, but still have good child safety, that, you know, don't damage or hurt anyone. And this can play a very vital role. We had some, you know, situations where, you know, cameramen does, oh, you know, we go somewhere filming there or outside and close that, but someone else like, oh, I need something like this here from the trunk, and then it's being closed and someone is standing here, for example, maybe with the head, and here you don't hurt yourself. So very well done, Mercedes. Every other manufacturer should look at this mechanism and have this exact torque. Let's go. With the GLS, recently renamed. Quite nice sound from this V6, you know, the 400 or 450 in the US called. Has this V6, as explained earlier, 333 horsepower or 360 something in the US, a little bit more horsepower then. And although this car is 2.5 tons in weight, the engine still gives a good performance, and you don't really need the higher displacement variants. For example, also on the motorway, I can show you how we come from 80 to 100. And we can also go to the sports mode for that. Sports mode, suspension goes a little stiffer then, gears are turned up, later shifting up, earlier shifting down, more engine sound to be heard then. So let me drop to 80 kilometers now and then go to 100, would be a typical overtaking maneuver or when going on the motorway. Let's get this 911 past. So here we go. Plop, that's it already. So you see, that works pretty good. I think it's a very suitable engine for this vehicle. In general, the 6-cylinder here from Mercedes, it was the blind spot warning, by the way, because of the car that has been passing there. In general, the 6-cylinder Mercedes is offering, we are very satisfied with that engine in general. We've driven it throughout many different vehicles, and you know, it's not too much as maybe the 8-cylinders. However, you do have some displacement if you compare it to those very small 2-cylinder turbos. So I think it's a right decision for many vehicles they are offering if you're still going for a classic petrol engine. And also consumption-wise, this is very interesting because, you know, going motorway here, it's very silent, by the way. Great sound insulation, such a relaxing ride also on the motorway. So if you combine everything, we get about something about 13 liters on 100 kilometers, and that's not so much more than we have with the same engine in other vehicles that are way lighter. So yes, it does depend on the weight of the vehicle, but it seems really that it also depends really just on the engine itself. We have had this engine maybe in some other vehicles with 11 liters, something like that. So I think that's still okay. Okay, I mean, it does have quite some consumption for sure. Yeah. So here, for example, I've had a test drive for 75 kilometers to just right over 2 hours, and then 12.9, for example. So that works pretty well. So I mean, there are other vehicles in this segment which have even higher consumption for sure. What is interesting, seat position wise, yeah, you do sit so high and also feel that you are in a bigger vehicle if you compare it to the Mercedes GLE, the segment below that. Also when you see the hood and those 3 vertical fins that we also know from a Mercedes SL, for example, that leaves a very strong impression. And I mean, it's a very comfortable seating position and you have a good overview over traffic. And the interesting thing is, you know, if you look at this vehicle from the outside, it's massive. But when you're driving it, it feels relatively okay. I've driven some vehicles that are way smaller and feel heavier and feel like they have less overview. Going back to comfort mode, by the way, for a more relaxing ride, that softens the air suspension again. I think this is also, you know, the steering wheel is quite light. You don't have to have too much strength in your arms to move it. However, it does not feel too unnatural, so that's also important. So really many people will get along with this vehicle very well, and this is, I think, a big advantage also if you compare it again to other vehicles in this segment. It's relatively easy to drive. If you look to the back mirror, yes, you see that it's 5 meters 12, 5 meters 14, something what it was, long, so really long, yeah. But again, I have a very good overview as the windows are all steep. I know basically where the car is ending, and if you just have, you know, some more length behind you when you're driving forward, you don't really feel much of a difference. And the camera system I showed you earlier also does a great job to be able to steer this car around in more narrow areas. Of course, it's not the best car for crowded European cities, but I can imagine this car here as a perfect US motorway car. Just if you go like 5-6 hours just straight, set the cruise control, you know, whatever, to 60 miles an hour and just relax, that will work very well. So comfort is definitely the main aspect, and I think hardly any other car can match this vehicle in comfort in this segment. So I've mentioned you know, the segment comparisons now, especially when driving, quite a lot of times, and I think it's very important. Mercedes always wants to be top of the segment. That's their approach. I think in this case they also really achieved that. As for the seat surfaces I've mentioned earlier, I can only stress that again also while driving, this special animal skin equipment we have here with the quilted structure Again, it looks fancy, but I can feel it also now by driving. And I've done earlier my 2.5 hours test ride. It's at some point it starts to hurt while seating because those stitches are a little hard and they also stretch the material a little bit. So if you have a different structure like on the Artico, the leatherette seats, that is more comfortable because when you've probably seen it on Instagram if you follow us on Instagram, when we were riding the Mercedes-AMG GTC Roadster in the US, we had the GLS as a shuttle with the Artico equipment inside. And when I was sitting on that was definitely also more comfortable on a long-term run, just also being a passenger. So very interesting key finding about the comfort there. Again, no matter what is happening outside, it's so comfortable in here. And again, you are not stressed or annoyed too much by the size of the vehicle. Of course you will when you're driving in the middle through Barcelona or something like that. But you won't when you can easily park your car in front of the department store with a huge parking lot, something like that. Here again, when you look to the side mirror, the blind spot monitor is active with a red triangle, and as soon as I activate the turning indicator, it's flashing, and I also hear the acoustic warning. So that you definitely do not change the lane. It's a good system, I would go for it. The most important system comes with standard equipment, that is the AEB, the autonomous emergency brake. Great that they include it for standard equipment, but of course at this price point they have to do it. Then we also have the Distronic Plus, or the Distance Pilot, also called that way. Set it with a separate lever at the steering wheel, and then the distance to the car in front of you is being held. And Mercedes has figured it quite well. They have semi-autonomous driving functions, so you're still obliged to keep the hands at the steering wheel. It would already work. Governmental regulations are not there yet. You see, it does actually work. If you compare it to the new system in the E-Class, here you see I'm getting, for my taste, a little bit too far to the middle of the road. So in the E-Class it's a little bit more refined already, that you always stay really in center of the road. But again, that's rather to help you on autobahn rides, that you don't have to hold on so tight to the steering wheel, that the car can really direct you in a flow, basically, and you just have your hand on the steering wheel just in case. I mean, why not? So this can be then combined to this Distance Pilot, which is one of the leading systems overall on the market. Now we get into the motorway part, or another motorway part again. We can have some more acceleration. See how it behaves in the normal mode from 80 to 100, if that's a big difference to the one we had earlier. The car will take a little bit more time to downshift, but what we can also do to demonstrate you, we can use the shifting pedal to the steering wheel to get the manual gear shift. So for example, here now is the converter gearbox, by the way. Important for towing, for example, if you put a trailer behind the car. So went for fifth now, fourth, and you already hear the sound. Let's go here. So in this case you have a direct response from the vehicle. That's good if you want that, especially for overtaking maneuvers. And then you just hold down the right shifting pedal to be able to go back to the next driving mode, for example. To the automatic gear shifting once more. The other driving modes, well, comfort and sport we need while being on the road. The other driving modes are more something for off-road, that you lift the vehicle up. The air suspension here again, what a great ride. And interesting thing is, when you earlier that day, I had one of our grannies as a co-driver here, and when people do not know much about cars, it's really interesting to hear their comments. And in German they are saying, when the car is driving very softly, you say it would be driving on Wolken, so on clouds. That's the direct translation, and that's what she was saying. They said, "Oh wow, that vehicle, it's driving like we were riding on clouds." And This is important feedback also for me as a car expert, when you get some feedback from non-expert, because that can tell you a lot about the vehicle. Sometimes you also tend to be, just blind in your expertise opinion. Also when comparing something, for example, or maybe you take a look at more details than would be necessary sometimes, then it's always good to have someone from outside to say, with a wider perspective something. So very interesting. Never stressing again also my point that this ride also not seating wise, also suspension wise is really comfortable. So I think if you equip this one here and with the right seating surface, then you have one of the most comfortable cars also for really long journeys. I think that's the biggest advantage for sure. Not sure if you can, you can see a little of it from those performance features I've shown you earlier. It's always nice to look at them at the Newton meters and stuff when riding car, but most of the time maybe you just have the GPS mounted. It's also a little bit better with the facelift now with a more crystal clear display. That also helps while driving to realize everything of the stuff. So in this car, I can really feel at home. I think that's the main aspect. And although I like driving SUVs, especially if you're taller, they're more comfortable. But for most purposes, also compact SUVs are just fine. This one here really makes sense when you have a big family, maybe, or you really, for some reason, need the space in the rear. There was a discussion with AJ in the Land Rover Discovery video, and I think it's okay when you to state your opinion when you generally say such big cars are not needed. And indeed, I also share the opinion that in most cases they are not. Some might need space, whatever, but we see that the consumption is not really that higher than if we have the V6 in a smaller car. And of course, also on an ecological basis, it makes sense to ride with this car with a lot of people than with two cars with one or two people. You can also turn it that way. So, going to the countryside now, and especially when you're driving slowly, you sometimes feel that you would be driving too slow in the car actually, but then you look at the speedometer, digital speedometer I've mounted in the middle of the display. What is this? I'm driving 50 because as it's so calm, the car, you think you would be standing still when you're driving 50 kilometers an hour. So that's always always something very funny. The converter gearbox we have here also really smoothless shifting, so very smooth transitions, and just when you hammer in the sport mode, as we've seen in the initial part of our driving part, then you do feel the gear changes. So I think they've really achieved something here with the vehicle. It has its coast for sure. But overall, we can say that driving-wise, as for the comfort, maybe are there maybe some that are sporty in this segment? Well, we have more cars to compare to the GLE, for sure. BMW will come up with a X7 that will then conquer this one, for example. We have to see how that plays out then driving-wise. I mean, it's not the most dynamic car, that's for sure, with its weight. That's also not the intent, but it does not feel undynamic. For example, when I'm doing some slalom here, so for this size it feels rather dynamic. But in general, by the sovereignty of the car, you are always more tending to drive calm and just say, whatever happens outside, I stay calm, I stay relaxed, and that's also always something very important when driving a car, because so many people are stressing out and saying, arguing about everything on the road and then horning and stuff, and just be relaxed. And this is really one car that helps you doing it. And now our conclusion, Mercedes GLS for today. Renaming? Okay, why not? Exterior styling, very powerful, but still with some elegance. So for this size here, I mean, a smaller car does look better, for example a GLE, but for this size I think they managed it very well. Interior also with a great processing quality, Also love it that in the 400 or 450 variant you can also go with the Asico or MB-Tech seats. We have interesting folding mechanisms, especially for the second and the third row, very comfortable definitely. What I would love to see would be that we also could slide the second row, then it would be perfect. So a lot of room, and that's what the car stands for. And driving wise, so much luxury, so much comfort, one of the most comfortable cars overall there is. Definitely with the high seating position and also the great air suspension we have here. And also with the V6, totally enough, more, doesn't need to be more powerful. It's not always good to get on with the bigger engines and always cost a lot of money. So here you can have a big luxury car and still not exceed, 120,000 euros, something like that. With all the extra equipment here we have, we're not staying at 75,000 euros with this very vehicle. We move towards surely 90,000, that's for sure. But, I mean, I've explained earlier, this comes with a lot of standard equipment already, and something else can also be done manual, so you can actually pick this car relatively naked and still have a very good vehicle. And well, in the competitors, if you look at them, they mostly come from the US. In Europe we hardly have so many competitors. I'm thinking about Cadillac Escalade, for example, or Chevrolet Suburban. I would think of those. And this one here, I think they can really say that they are top of this segment. A lot of different elements, hardly any other competitor can match at the moment. Or what do you think? Put me your thoughts in the comments. Also tell me if you are in this very segment in the market, if you're driving one of those vehicles, maybe the GL or the GLS, also one of those competitors. Let's just have some very interesting exchange of experience and opinions in the comments. And also join us at the very next Autogefühl episode. Thank you.